So the UFC is back at the Apex this weekend for a very interesting fight night main event between Brandon Royval and the upcoming fast-rising Tatsuro Taira. And in this video, I'm going to be going through the entire card, giving my breakdown and prediction for every single fight on this card. I will put the time codes down below, so if there's specific fights you want to hear me discuss, feel free to do that. But man, I'm actually kind of looking forward to this fight night a little bit. Look, it's not the most loaded fight night. I am bummed that we're back in the Apex because whenever we come off of a crazy main event or a crazy event in, a pay-per-view event or even a fight night in front of a crowd, it's just so it just takes the air out of it, man, whenever we go back to the damn Apex. But the main event that we are getting on this card, I mean, this is a spectacular fight between Brandon Royval and Tatsuro Taira, which we will get to. I got a lot to discuss about that one, so I'm going to save it. Let's hop right into this, starting with our very first fight of the evening. I'm going to try to go through the prelims pretty quick, and as we get to the main card, it'll be a little bit longer. So, first fight, Clayton Carpenter versus Lucas Rocha. Here's my issue, right? I'm going to go Clayton Carpenter here, right? I think Clayton Carpenter is well-rounded, and one of the things that I'm really kind of looking at it coming into this matchup, guys, we've seen this recently in the UFC. We see a prospect who comes off of whether it's the Contender Series or they, just find their way into the UFC, and yes, they might be 10-0 or, stack some wins together. But once you get to the UFC and you fight a guy in there who understands the UFC, who's just got his feet wet in the organization, we tend to see there be this just big gap. I don't really know if it's necessarily skill, but these guys feel the moment. And for some reason, I have a feeling here that Lucas is going to be feeling the moment. I believe Clayton Carpenter, he's well-rounded wherever the fight hits. I think Clayton Carpenter has the advantage. I think he's going to be calm and composed here. Granted, it's in the Apex. It's not like you're in front of a crowd, so I don't think that Lucas is going to suffer too much of an adrenaline dump, but I think Clayton Carpenter with his experience is going to get this one done. I got Clayton. Moving on, we have Dan Argueta and Cody Haddon. I feel very similar here. Look, Dan Argueta, I'm riding with Argueta in this matchup. Look, I think that he's a well-rounded fighter. He's got good submissions in his back pocket. He's decent on the feet. And I think with Cody Haddon, solid fighter. But I feel kind of the same way I do, man. Whenever we get these prospects, it's like I've been picking the prospects almost every time, and I keep getting it wrong, and I overlook the guy that's, cut their teeth in the organization a little bit, understands the UFC. Like, I never, when I was picking fights, valued that enough to the way I'm going to try to on this card. Watch all these prospects win this time, but I really do believe that Dan Argueta has well-rounded skill set. I believe wherever the fight goes, he's going to have an advantage, and you just add the side of he's fought the better competition to this point. I think Dan Argueta is able to get this one done. Moving on, we have Chris Barnett and Junior Tafa. This is actually a really good fight. This is a fantastic fight. And whenever we talk about the Apex cards, it's very easy to criticize, right? And I get your pain. I get it. This is a good matchup. This is a fun fight because Chris Barnett, he's been away for a little while. I think he's had some injuries, some different things going on that have kept him sidelined. This is a very explosive dude at heavyweight. And what I mean by explosive, we're not talking Francis Ngannou, Tom Aspinall type of movement or power or anything like that. We're talking about a very dynamic 260-some pound dude that's, floating around and throwing spinning wheel kicks, jumping in the air, doing cartwheels. Chris Barnett is a little bit different, right? I mean, when do you see a dude that looks like a blob like this that's out there doing cartwheels, can do a full split? Like, that's a special dude. That's a special individual. But what this comes down to for me is Junior Tafa. If you're not presenting a grappling challenge, Junior Tafa is, in my opinion, is a very high-level striker in the heavyweight division and you may laugh at that, but I'm just saying, look, if you don't have takedowns and you're just looking at the aspect of just striking, Junior Tafa can hang with just about everybody in the heavyweight division. I think he's very fast. He's got good leg kicks. He's got good boxing. I think Junior Tafa wins this fight. I think that he's able to utilize the range. Chris Barnett, I don't think provides enough of a grappling threat here, and that's kind of been the plague to Junior. We've seen him in Glory Kickboxing. We've seen him in the UFC. If you stand in front of this guy and you don't present the challenge when it comes to the grappling, he's fast, he's nimble, and I just think that he is going to be a lot faster than Chris Barnett. And while Chris has those wild techniques, maybe he's able to throw something wild and catch Junior Tafa. guys like Junior, guys like Alex Pineda, Izzy, Cesar Almeida, guys that have been doing kickboxing, striking for an extended period of time, they don't tend to get caught by these wild techniques. It tends to be the pressure, kind of you just bite down and decide to fight these guys is the way to win. I don't think Chris Barnett can do that. Maybe I'm underestimating him. I think Junior Tafa is able to get back on track and get this one done. Like I said, if Barnett comes in there and he has some newfound, grappling prowess and he's able to just ragdoll him around, I can see him winning. But just on the feet, I got Junior Tafa. Moving on. We got Themba Gorimbo and Nico Price. Man, this feels dirty, man. This feels dirty by the UFC. Look, you don't want to write anybody off because this is fighting. But if I'm going to write someone off on the card, it's Nico Price, right? I think Themba Gorimbo here, he gets a highlight reel finish. This is a guy that not only does he have an incredible story, not only is he an inspiration, but he is an incredibly talented fighter. This guy is very, very dangerous. I think Themba Gorimbo, he has nasty striking on the feet. He's a well-rounded fighter, especially in the welterweight division. That is there are some contenders right now in the welterweight division, but this is a really, really big opportunity for Gorimbo here because Nico Price, I know people want to rag on Nico a little bit, and Nico's weird, man. First of all, he's really awkwardly built. Like Nico Price is one of the weirdest builds in the UFC. He seems like a great guy, but we don't really know what to expect with Nico at times. He's just very lethargic, very slow, and it just seems like sometimes when we least expect it, Nico Price comes out, the actual hybrid, his nickname, and finds a way to get the job done. But this is a steep hill to climb against a guy that in Gorimbo who's finding his groove, just has all the makings of being, a contender in this division, someone the UFC is going to try to push. I got Gorimbo getting this one done, and I sense a finish happening in this matchup. Moving on, we have Jonathan Pierce, a.k.a. JSP, and Pat Sabatini. So this is an interesting fight, right? This kind of reminds me of when we actually have Grant Dawson on this card when he took on Joel Selecki. This is kind of a grappler's delight matchup, right? Whenever we talk about the UFC and the matchmaking, this is good matchmaking here, right? We don't have a striker versus grappler per se. This is more of two solid grapplers that are built very different because Pat Sabatini a little kind of squattier, where JSP kind of has that longer frame. And theoretically, right, and when it comes to grappling, sometimes the longer limbs are good for submissions, you're kind of flexible in the hips and you can kind of throw up triangles and things like that. And then when you're the shorter, stockier guy, you tend to have a little bit of a leverage advantage. But one thing about JSP, I really like the way the guy grapples. I think that he transitions really, really well. I think that he sets up his takedowns really well. Sometimes he does become a little bit predictable with his entries. I think JSP is able to win this fight. And I don't think that this is anything that Pat Sabatini is going to do wrong. This just comes down to basically pure grappling. And on the feet, I mean, who do you go to, right? If this only, if the grappling negates and we're just standing in front of each other with the striking, I think Jonathan Pierce with his lanky range, and I think he would be able to have some success there, but I really think that this is a grappler's delight. I think we see both guys come in, look to be grapple heavy, and if I have to put my money on somebody here or pick, someone, I think JSP is a little bit scramblier. I think that he's strong in the grappling department. And whenever he is on, if JSP is on, he's very, very good with the transitions. I got JSP winning some of the scrambles and winning the grappling exchanges against a very good grappler himself in Pat Sabatini. This is a grappler's delight, man. I'm actually really looking forward to this fight. Moving on, CJ Vergara and Ramazan Temirov. Now, I kind of went back and forth here because, like I said before, whenever we see someone coming into the UFC, we haven't seen a lot of them, which I looked up. Ramazan, is over in Ryzen doing some different things, knocking people the hell out. I was convinced enough to go ahead and pick Ramazan in this fight because one of the things is, look, CJ Vergara, he's not a bad fighter. He's decently well-rounded. He's got pretty good striking, and we've seen him in there with some good prospects on the rise in the flyweight division. But for me, yes, he can finish people, but he's a little bit of a decision machine as of late, and I believe that Ramazan, a guy that's riding a hot streak coming into this, people sleep on Ryzen, man. Ryzen has some really good fighters over there. This is a guy that has won multiple fights in a row. I think that whenever you're coming from an outside organization, if you're winning a bunch of decisions or close fights, that's one thing. But when you're going out there in these packed arenas in Ryzen and you're going out there and you're starching people like Ramazan is doing, I'm more willing to take a chance on the pick there, and I think Ramazan comes in here. I think his striking is clean. He's pretty technical. He's got some pop in his hands, obviously, for getting the finishes that he is. I'm going to trust him in this match. But like I said, I'm kind of going against the grain for this for me because I get worried. Whenever these guys make their debut in the UFC, it seems like there's just a little bit of a gap. But I'm going to go out on a limb on this one. I don't know what the odds are for this one, but I'm going to pick Ramazan to beat CJ Vergara in this matchup. And I think that Ramazan is able to find a finish. Moving on to the welterweight division, we have Njokuani and Jared Gooden. This is a fun fight. I think we see a finish here. Look, Njokuani, I think, is going to be the one to win this fight. I think he wins by KO. I don't think this fight sees the judges' scorecard. So, in my eyes, whoever you're picking, it's by KO. And Chidi's one of those guys, man. He's built like an ox. He's big, he's strong, he's fast, and he's technical on the feet. And while I think Jared Gooden does have power, we've seen that. We saw it against Wellington Turman, Alex Pineda's teammate. We saw the improvements with Wellington Turman in his striking. He was able to clip Jared Gooden. We saw that Gooden had some issues in the grappling, which I don't think that we're going to see a lot of that in this fight. This is a back-and-forth striker's delight type of matchup. I think we see a good back-and-forth, but ultimately, Jared Gooden, I almost called him Jared Gordon, he gets a little bit reckless at times on the feet. He kind of loads up on some shots, and I think the good, clean, straight striking of Chidi Njokuani is going to be a problem. I'm going Chidi because whenever we talk about, two strikers going in there, the guy that's loading up and swinging for the fences, and then you got the other guy throwing good straight shots, I'm going to go with the good straight shot guy from now on because we saw that with Ignacio Bahamondes and Manuel Torres. Torres likes to load up on shots, whereas Bahamondes just likes to snipe. I think Chidi's able to put one on the chin and put Gooden out. But whoever you pick, I think they win by finish. Moving on to our main card, we have Abdul Razak Alhassan and Josh Fremd. I think we see Abdul get a finish here. Look, I think Razak Alhassan, coming off of that, that debacle with Cody Brundage, right? Cody Brundage is a guy that a lot of us in the community are hard on. It's like, do you want to be a fighter or do you not? Like, what are you doing in there? You had the Bo Nickel performance, which it was like, okay, not bad, Brundage. And then he goes out there and just wasn't a good look the way the fight ended against Abdul. But look, Abdul's got crazy power. He's a big, physically strong guy for the weight class. And other than him being in there with guys that outpower him, which good luck finding that, he is going to have a significant power advantage, I believe, in this matchup. And I do believe Josh Fremd is maybe a little bit more polished in terms of the overall skill set. He's a little bit cleaner, a little bit more aesthetically pleasing. But I do believe in this division, with what we have seen from Razak Alhassan, the power, the devastation that he fights with, and coming off of that, emotional, fight with Cody Brundage to where he was pissed off that it was stopped. I think we see some pent-up aggression. Abdul is due for a win. In my opinion, I hope the guy can get a win considering what happened against Brundage. I think Abdul is able to win this fight by KO. But with the way Razak Alhassan fights, him or Josh Fremd, to me, somebody's getting finished. But I think Josh Fremd gets KO'd in this matchup. Moving on. Daniel Rodriguez, D-Rod, taking on Alex Morono. I like this fight a lot. I think that this is a fun fight inside the welterweight division. Look, I think Alex Morono is a solid fighter. I know, from what we saw last time out, it seemed uncharacteristic of Alex Morono, in my opinion. But Alex Morono is not a world beater, but he has a style that it's kind of like Sean Strickland, right? I'm not saying that he's got a Philly shell and he walks forward and just throws a bunch of teeps and checks kicks. That's not what I'm saying. It's just a weird style that you don't really see other than Alex Morono, and I do believe that gives fighters some trouble. But Daniel Rodriguez is very good on the feet. And if you're not threatening the grappling, if you're just going to stand in front of D-Rod and you don't have crazy power, you don't have crazy speed, which Morono, in my opinion, doesn't possess any of those qualities, I believe Daniel Rodriguez is able to get this one done. Now, is he able to find a finish? I don't know. I could see this going to a decision here, but I believe D-Rod coming off of that fight with Kelvin Gastelum to where, that was a disaster, right? Shame on Kelvin Gastelum for missing weight. D-Rod had to weigh in heavier. That was a shit show with Gastelum, and he goes out there and puts on a pretty decent performance at times, considering, the weight issue with Gastelum that gave Kelvin a huge advantage, and we saw D-Rod kind of right there neck and neck, but one of the issues was the grappling, and Kelvin Gastelum, in my opinion, definitely has better grappling, better wrestling than Alex Morono, at least, and in terms of the striking, Morono, he could kind of pepper you, he could kind of be in your face doing that kind of of like cat-like fighting style that he has, and I just don't think that that's very troubling to a guy like D-Rod, who he's made some changes in his camp. I know he's training over at Extreme Couture and stuff. I think D-Rod is going to come into this one. This seems like the UFC is trying to do right by him, considering what happened his last time out, because he didn't back out of that fight with Gastelum. He could have, considering the whole debacle there. I think D-Rod is a little bit more skilled, a little bit faster on the feet. Even though he's getting up there in age, I got D-Rod getting it done. Moving on, we have Julia Polastri and Corey McKenna. Now, this fight right here, I actually think this is really even, right? I think Julia is a slight favorite coming into this, but to me, it's almost kind of a pick'em, because I think that they're both well-rounded. They both have good submissions. They both have decent striking, but I am going to lean towards the favorite, Julia Polastri, in this matchup, because I think that if Corey comes out there and this fight plays out on the feet, I think we see a decent back and forth to where Julia is able to win a close decision. But if the fight hits the floor to where we've seen Corey like to resort to that, I don't see her being able to utilize the grappling to put Julia in any trouble. And if the fight does hit the floor, I could see Julia try to throw up a submission or chase some sort of submission of her own. But most likely, I think this goes to decision, and I think Julia is able to edge this one out. Moving on, we have Grant Dawson and Rafa Garcia. Now, I'm putting a lot of pressure on Grant Dawson in this fight. I'm going to be upfront and honest with all of you. If Grant Dawson does not obliterate Rafa Garcia in this matchup, I don't know what the UFC does with this guy, man. I don't know what they do with him, because Grant Dawson, he doesn't have a very exciting fighting style, right? I know he does have outstanding grappling. He's very, very good at controlling guys, but the problem is it's not very entertaining. And if you're not going to be entertaining with your fighting style, well, you got to bring something else to the table. Are you going to be good on the microphone? Are you going to kind of have an infectious personality? And no offense to Grant, he doesn't have any of it. So I think the UFC's in a weird spot to they're like, well, what do we do with this guy? But in this fight, I mean, Rafa Garcia, he's tough. He's just kind of a guy, to be honest with you, right? He's kind of just a dude. And I do believe Grant Dawson wins this fight, but I'm gonna go be positive here, because I'm kind of hard on Grant. He's got to win this fight. He's got to win this fight, and it can't be a decision. Grant Dawson, you need to go in there. You need to finish Rafa Garcia. You need to take his ass down. You need to submit him, and it needs to be impressive, because at the apex here, the KO loss to Bobby Green, it just hasn't aged well. I understand, things happen. You get clipped on the feet by a shot you don't see. That fight has not aged well. I believe Grant Dawson at American Top Team, he's got a good camp behind him. He's got really good grappling. We saw that against Joel Selecki. He is very, very good at controlling guys. I think it is absolutely paramount for Grant Dawson, for the future of him in his fighting career, to go into this fight with every intention of looking for a finish. And if he could do that, which I believe he can, I believe Grant Dawson wins this fight. But I do think he wins regardless. I think that Grant Dawson wins this fight. I think it would be most likely by decision. But I'm willing it into existence for you, Grant. I'm looking out for you, man. I'm manifesting it. Grant Dawson by submission, hopefully. Moving on. Brad Tavares, Jun Young Park. This is a fun fight. This is a fun fight right here. I got Jun Young Park getting this thing done. Look, Brad Tavares, he's a guy that's always been known for his durability and his toughness and his fun, exciting style on the feet. He like kind of a Thai-based style, keeps his hands up, moves forward, a Dutch-esque type of style. He moves forward. He's got good striking. He's got good power. But what we've seen from Brad is, yeah, he moves forward, but Brad's kind of just like became, I don't want to say a moving heavy bag, but he takes a lot of damage, and he hasn't been giving a ton of damage in his recent outings. And I know against Chris Weidman, we saw that there. That was Weidman coming off of the injury and all those different things. But outside of that, Brad Tavares has just kind of been a guy, and he struggled with Gregory Rodriguez, which, granted, RoboCop he's just on a different, he's a different dude right now. But I believe Jun Young Park, not only does he have good power and pretty good striking, he's got submissions. And Brad Tavares does have good grappling. He does have good takedown defense, but I think Park is going to be throwing a lot at him. I think he's going to strike. He's going to mix into takedowns. He's going to keep Brad Tavares guessing to where maybe he's able to hurt Brad on the feet, because once you see a guy who's known for durability, but then they start getting buzzed, they get clipped with shots, and are just not wearing it the same, that's just not particularly a good sign. I think that's what we're looking at here. I think Jun Young Park's well-rounded skill set, he's able to hurt Tavares and maybe sub him. I got Jun Young Park getting this one done. Moving on. Finally, we have arrived. The main event of the evening between Brandon Royval and Tatsuro Taira. I've went back and forth here. right? I know a lot of folks are very convinced that Tatsuro Taira, he's that dude, he's that guy, and he's, coming off a spectacular win over Perez. He's got good submissions. His striking is constantly improving. He's young, he's hungry, coming out of Japan. Feels like Japan is on the map here. And then you got Brandon Royval, man, who he's just been at the top of the division forever. He's fast, he's twitchy, he's like a jackrabbit in there, right? I mean, Brandon Royval he's a hard dude to deal with because he's a pest. He's fast, he's everywhere, he's switching stances, he's just an energizer bunny, and that can be very troubling. And while I think Tatsuro Taira, we saw in his most recent outing against Perez, yes, you can say, well, it was kind of a weird situation because of the Perez injury, but that was Tatsuro Taira, man. He was absolutely overwhelming Perez. We saw the grappling, and I do know that Brandon Royval is well-rounded. He's got some slick submissions of his own. He's fast on the feet, and I do believe that he is going to have the striking advantage in this matchup. I think that he's going to be a little bit faster than Taira. He's a little bit cleaner, and I know Taira's improving, but I do think that Royval holds the advantage on the feet. The issue I have here is whenever we've seen Tatsuro get a hold of people, it just seems like he's different in terms of the grappling. It seems like Taira is just a little bit different when it comes to the grappling department. And I do think that he's able to get a hold of Brandon in this fight. And if he's able to put Royval on his back, or he's able to take his back, Tatsuro makes you make mistakes. He makes you make a decision to where you're like, I got to get him off of me. You kind of panic because you know how good he is in terms of the submissions. And he's kind of like just like a snake. He just hops on your back. You start slowly coiling around and you start panicking because you feel the grip tightening up and you're trying to get out of there. I think Tatsuro Taira is able to sub Brandon Royval. I think he's able to get a submission here. But if this fight goes all 5 rounds, I'm not liking that for Taira, man. I'm not liking it for Taira. So to me, I'm going Tatsuro Taira to win this fight. But if he wins, it's going to have to be by a submission here, because I do think the longer this fight goes, as it goes, into those later rounds, you're going to see Brandon Royval start to find his range, start to find his timing. Because another thing for me here, Brandon's coming off of a good performance against Brandon Morono in Mexico. The problem I have is Brandon Morono was clearly off that night. I don't know if Brandon Morono was just like off or Royval was just like that great that night, which no offense to Royval, I think it was kind of just Morono just was like checked out. I don't know. It just was a completely different Brandon Morono, a guy who was not willing to put his foot on the gas, a guy who was not willing to really engage. And I think that Brandon, he did what he had to do to win the fight. He put out more volume to where in this fight, if you're trying to put volume in the face of Tatsuro Taira, especially early on, you're going to give him an opportunity to slip a shot, get to that back, take you down. I think Tatsuro Taira is different in terms of the grappling. I think the improvements in terms of the striking are going to be enough to where maybe Royval kind of underestimates him on the feet. I think Tatsuro Taira gets this one done. I'm going by submission because the longer the fight plays out, it's 5 rounds. I think that favors Brandon Royval a little bit. And I know Taira's coming off a fight with Perez. This is definitely, in my opinion, the best guy that Taira has fought this far in Brandon Royval. But we've seen this go one of 2 ways. You throw them into the shark tank and they come out alive, or they go in there and the sharks get them. So Brandon Morono is the shark here. This is a big opportunity for Tatsuro Taira, getting a top 5 guy, the number 1 ranked dude. It's very clear. If Tatsuro Taira wins this fight, no more denying him. He'll be next in line for a title shot. If he wins, definitely call for that opportunity. The flyweight division has some guys here and there, but I think Tatsuro Taira gets a submission over Brandon Royval this weekend. And if he does, I think he's next in line for the title. But I want to hear from you all down in the comments. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, turn on that notification bell so you do not miss an upload. I appreciate you all. See you next time.